The purpose of this video is to talk to you about how to do symbology. Symbology is one of the most important tools that we can use in GIS. It gives us the ability to change colors, change line width, change type of line, change the fill color, classify information by names, classify information by ranges of values. So for example, if you have a bunch of numerical values in a field, say it's a population field, you can then classify how many people live in this range, this polygon, from 0 to 100 people, 101 to 205 people, 205 to 1,000 people. How many people live in that area? Or you can classify like road types. Is it an interstate highway? Is it a county road? Is it a residential street? You can classify information that way. And you can just do some basic symbology of changing colors of fills, and you can change the line width or the type of line. So if you're looking at a county boundary, you may not want it to be a black line, but you might want it to be a gray line with a dashed line inside of it to look more like a county boundary that you have traditionally seen on maps. So symbology is an extremely, extremely important feature. You use it in almost every map you build. You will use symbology at some time in building that map. So it's an extremely critical issue that you understand how to do it. This is going to be sort of an introduction to symbology. There's a lot more in symbology than what we can do in just this one video. So there's other things that you can explore on your own beyond what the scope of this video has for you. So let's open a map. So I'm going to go to my Add Data button here. And I'm going to use the pull down here just to show you where I'm at on bringing data in. I'm on one of my servers. I'm under the State tab under Indiana in this case, under Polygons, and I just want a state map of Indiana. So I'm going to click there, and we have two versions of this polygon shapefile. One's a projected version and one's a non-projected version. I'm going to click on the projected version and say Add, and there you can see a map of the state of Indiana showing the county boundaries. Now mine has sort of a purplish color fill here. Yours may have a different color of fill, so don't worry if your fill color doesn't match my fill color. And on this first map, what we're going to do is just some basic stuff with symbology. So to get to the symbology window, you either double-click on the shapefile name, or you right-click and go down to Properties. I'm going to double-click on it. And there's my property window. And I'm going to go to the Symbology tab, and you see something that looks like the following. We're going to look at some of these other types of features over here, but we're right now in just features single symbol. This is really unclassified data. We're just maybe thinking about this as a base map that you're going to put other data on top of. And what we want to do is we want to change the fill color to be hollow so I can put information underneath it, and these would still be the county boundaries. So to do that, I'm going to click on the purple. I'm going to click on hollow over here. Or I could have used this pull down for fill color, and you can see where it says no color there. Either way would have worked, but I clicked on a predefined one. If you notice, it also changed my boundary from a gray color to a black color, and it gives me the width of the line. Well, I want to also change my boundary information. I don't want my boundary information just to be a black line. I want it to look like a county boundary. So I'm going to go down here to Properties, and you can see you can change several things like the color. Again, you could change, and you have some other options here on how to change stuff. But I want to change the outline feature. So I'm going to click on that. And if you've brought up the property window, the symbology window, and looked at lines before, this is the same window that you might have seen before, because a polygon is a filled closed area with a line around it. And so you need to be able to manage both what the fill color is, which we made hollow, and also what the boundary line is around it. And you can see some of the predefined ones here for us. There's quite a few predefined ones, and there's even more that you can bring in if you want to. There's one called County Boundary. That's the one I want. I'll click on that and say OK. And now you notice the width of the line has changed, and also the color has changed. It actually has a little dashed line around it. If you see here on my left-hand side, I'm going to say OK here. Come back to this window. One more time, OK. Back to the Properties window. You can see now what the symbol is going to change to. And I'm going to click OK. And we can see that the state map has now changed. It is now looks to be white on your screen. It's actually hollow. White is a color. Hollow is no color. Hollow you can see through. White would be opaque. So this is hollow. And if you look at the boundary area, you can see the boundary area is a little different. I'm going to just zoom in on the boundary area so we can look at it a little bit closer here. Zoom in down here in southern Indiana. And we'll let this regenerate for us. There you can see now a map of Clark and Floyd County, a little bit of Harrison, Washington County, Scott County, a little bit of Jefferson County, Indiana. Don't see anything of Kentucky here because we didn't load a Kentucky map. But if you look carefully at the boundary line, you can see it's made up of dashes and a gray line. So we have a gray line with black dashes on it. So we can now see a little bit better that boundary line that we chose for our county boundary. Now if we were doing a state of Indiana for some research purpose, we might also want to bring in a state map and make the state boundary between Kentucky here in Indiana a different shaped line or a different colored line to make it more obvious what the state boundary is versus just what the county boundary is. So you can see some of the things we can play with in the symbology of just a single feature. I'm going to zoom back to the whole state here. There you can see the whole state of Indiana again. And you can see, if you look carefully, that there is that gray and black line on the boundary. And again, this is hollow. So that's just very, very basic symbology that I can play with. I could have actually done that another way. I could have done it by clicking on this little box here that shows what the fill color is, again, hollow in our case, and the boundary. If I just double-clicked on that, that would have brought up the color selector, and I could have done the same situation as I just did using symbology. So there's usually multiple ways you can accomplish the same task. So we'll cancel that. But now what I want to do is make each county show up that it's unique looking. Right now it's all hollow, and what I want to do is make each county have a different color. And to do that, we're going to go back to the Symbology window. So I'm going to double click to get to the Properties window to make sure I'm on the Symbology tab. And I'm going to go to Categories this time. Notice we got a different window showing up, and there is different types of categorical areas that we can use. I'm going to use the unique value one. And I want something that's a unique value for each county, so each county ends up having a different color. Well, one of the things that's a unique value for each county would be its name. So I'm going to come in here and look for the value, under Value field, a file or a label field called Name. Now, if you don't know what these fields contain, you might actually have to cancel this, and you might need to right-click and go over and open up the attribute table so you can see what's in those files. But since I knew name had to be unique, I knew I could have used that one, but you can see how you can do that. So I'm going to close that. You've got to have the Properties window closed to be able to do that. Again, I'm going to go to Categories. I'm going to go to the field area here, and I'm going to say Name. And I'm going to say Add All Values. So I've added all the values for every county. There's 92 counties in Indiana, as you can see over here on the right-hand side. There's only one county with each name in the state of Indiana, so that's why each one of these has a 1 in it as the count value. And you can see the names of the counties showing up here. So we now have 92 different colored counties. But I need to change the ramp color here. And instead of using a graduated ramp color, you really don't want to ever use a graduated ramp color when you're doing categories. Instead, what I want to use is discrete colors. And so these ones that have little squares on them, those are discrete colors. These that blend from one color to another, those are graduated, or a gradient, and we don't want to use those in categories in general. So let's see, is there one that I like better than another one? Oh, that one looks kind of interesting, so we'll choose that one. Now you can see there's a lot bigger color range between adjoining counties, or alphabetically listed counties. I shouldn't say adjoining counties, alphabetically listed counties, because before we saw this gradual change of color, which would have made the colors too close, most likely next to each other potentially. So we use this discrete color ramp in this case, and I'm going to say OK. And now you can see the state of Indiana has been regenerated. Over on the left you can see all 92 counties listed and what color is associated with each county. And you can see over on the map now that each county has a different color associated with it. Now, obviously, to see 92 different unique colors by your eye would be difficult to see, but you can see that there's very few counties that have even a similar color close to them, and that's important as we did this with this discrete color mechanism. Let me just go back to property windows just again here. Let me change the color ramp to a gradient just so you see the difference with a gradient. And I'm going to say OK. And let the map regenerate here. It takes a moment to do. And now you can see the colors blend so very closely. It's not nearly as easy to detect individual counties because, like here in the middle of the state, we have all these ones that are in some type of a reddish tone. And you got a lot in this yellow tone, like 2 counties right there that appear to me to be the same color. Across here in the bottom here of mid-southern Indiana, you see 3 counties that look to be almost all the same color. So we typically use this discrete color, and I'm going to go back to the discrete color and change my map again. So I'm going to open the properties window again. And I'm going to change back to discrete colors like we had before. I'll use the same one we had before and say OK. And let me recenter the map a little bit. Looks like I got a little bit of a zoom there. Let's go back to our previous layout. There we go. And you can see the counties are much more obvious that their uniqueness by doing it with the discrete color instead of using the gradient. So that's another type of classification we can use. So we can choose a field, and each unique name in that field will have a classification. So if this was a road field instead of being a county map field, we would have maybe a code that represents an interstate, a code that represents a state highway, a code that represents a U.S. highway. And so instead of just an individual county as we had in the county map, there might be 100 road segments that are interstate. There might be 2,000 road segments that are U.S. highway. There might be 5,000 road segments that are state highways. And you could classify all the state highways with one color, all the interstate highways with a different symbolism to make them very obvious on your map instead of having to discretely go and classify each one individually. So that's one of the uses of this area of symbology. So I'm going to double click again just to show you this window. So I'm using categories, unique value. We found the field we wanted, and then we said add all values, and it did this sorting for us that each county came up individually. The first time you'll see a numerical value here, but if you go back to this window, it does lose that numerical value. But this is a database and not a spreadsheet. So you can see the happening by using this categorical unique value type of symbology. I'm going to cancel this window for a moment. And I need to bring in a new map to do this next one. There's a hyperlink in the text on where to find this information. So I'm going to go to Add Data. I'm going to go up a couple levels, get out of Indiana actually, and I want to go to Kentucky. There's KY for Kentucky, double click on that. I want to go to Regions. It's not and I want to go to JCTC, that region there. And I'm looking for a polygon shapefile here. Wait for that to open. And we want to use the one called Merge Join Census. Now I'm using data that's already been expanded. The links that we've given you is for data that is in a compressed format that you're going to have to download and then unzip yourself. The reason we do this is that if you're outside the college's firewall, you cannot get to these servers. I'm doing this video on campus so I can get to these servers that have the data already expanded. In your case, you're going to have to download the data, uncompress the data, and then use the data in that format. So you're going to have a middle ground step here. We're going to have to download the files. But we've given you the direct link to the file. You're just going to have to download it and decompress it for your use. You cannot use the server data that we have because those are image files and they are not vector files, and therefore you cannot change the symbology of those files like what we're doing here. So you cannot use the server data at this point because you need to be able to use data that you can change the color and the fills and information like that. So this is the file that I'm going to load, so I'm going to say add here. Okay, you can see the data has been added. It's an area of southern Indiana and northern Kentucky around the Louisville area is what this area is that we're looking at. We really don't need the Indiana map any longer, so let's remove the Indiana map here. So I'm going to right click and say remove. We didn't remove it from our computer. We didn't remove it from the hard drive wherever it's located. All we did was remove it from the desktop. So there's our shapefile that we have. I'm going to zoom into that shapefile a little bit. And what this is a combination of multiple counties in both Kentucky and Indiana. You're seeing it at the census tract level. So we're looking at the census tract level of it. And we've already merged information from the Census Bureau with information that is this shape. So we did a join of data. We downloaded data for each county from the Census Bureau. We merged that information or joined that information with that county, and then we merged all the counties to form a region around the Louisville metropolitan area. So that's what this map is. I'm going to come over here and right click on the layer and open up the attribute table. And I'm going to scroll across this attribute table, and you can see there's across the top there's like P001001, P005001, P005002, and so on. And if you go across all that is census information, census data. We have given you a link to our census data library so you can understand what that data means a little bit better. But you can see there's a lot of data that's contained here. Not only is there a lot of data for each census tract, there is some 319 census tracts. As I scroll down, you can see all the different census tracts there. So I'm going to close the attribute window. I'm going to come back over here and double click to open the properties window. And I want to go down to quantities this time. Quantities instead of categories. So what this is going to do is say anything that's in a certain range display with one color. If it's in a different range, display with another color, and so on and so forth. But I need to tell what value field that I want to do that on. And there's all those column headings that we looked at just a moment ago in the attribute table. And I'm just going to use the first one, P001001, which is population of each census tract. And you can see here it's generated for me color bars off of this ramp color and automatically generated ranges for those numerical values. So we got 320 to 2,935, 2,935.0001. Don't worry about all the decimal places there. To 4402 will be that orangish color. Yellow will be anything greater than 4402. Up to 6,115 will be yellow. And you can see a couple greens there. But we want to change some information here just to show you how you can change and modify some of the information. How many classes? Right now I've got 5 classes here. You can see there's 5 different color bars over on the left-hand side. Let's make it 8. Why did I choose 8? No real reason in this case. Just wanted to show you that you could change and have more color bars, and it breaks up the ranges. So now you can see the ranges are different values than what we just were reading here. We can change the ramp color. Oh, let's go this red to blue. And you can see the colors here changed. Oh, maybe I don't like that one. Oh, let's go just a gradation from yellows to reds. Well, that might be a little hard to see. So you can see I can just go in here and change ramp colors until I find something that is appropriate for me to use. I'm going to use that one. So we've changed the number of classes. You can change how you classify, and we're not going to get into that. But here's the breakpoints, and here's a histogram showing how many are in each census tract with certain number ranges. And you can actually slide these ranges around and change how the breakpoint is that way. You also have some other controls over here. So I'm going to say OK there. We also have something called normalization. If you wanted to compare one category, like how many people are 18 years and older that lives in a census tract versus the total number of people in the census tract, you could do a normalization where you would be comparing one to another, basically like a percentage. So I'm going to click out of that and not use normalization. You also have some controls on symbol levels, like how many decimal places they're showing and stuff like that. And I can also manually just come over here and click on the last value. Right now the last value is 2,773. I'm going to make that 3,000. No real reason I'm using number 3,000. Just showing you I can change this. And I'm going to hit enter. And then what it does is change. The start point here was a different start point. It changed the start point, but I changed the end point. Let's change this one to, I don't know, 3,800. And you can, again, see if I click out of there, it changed the start point for the next one. So I'm going to say OK. And now you can see that we have color-coded the map by population. Here's our populations, 320 to 2107, greater than 2107 to 3,000, one of the ones I changed, 3,000, greater than 3,000 to 3,800, from greater than 3,800 to 3,935, and so on. You can see these have been changed. And you can see the corresponding colors here on the map. I'm going to zoom in tight, but if you notice, right in this area, there seems to be a lot of census tracts. So I'm going to just zoom in a little tighter right here in the center. This is actually Louisville. And you can see how small the census tracts are. But census tracts were designed to be about equal population. They're not any longer equal population, as you can see from the numbers on my left-hand side. But you can see that there are very small census tracts by land area in the Louisville area and across the river in southern Indiana. But then as you get out in the more rural areas, those census tracts become a lot larger. And census tracts can be changed every 10 years, so they're not a discrete area. They do change from time to time. Census tracts are only contained within a single county. And so you can get a feel for some of that information. So with symbology, we can change lots of parameters. And it's critical that we use symbology appropriately as we're building maps. So by using symbology, we can make the map look the way we want the map to look. We use 3 different types of things in symbology: single feature, categories, and quantities. And we only used them at the basic level, and there's a lot more you can do beyond the levels that we looked at here. But this is enough to get you started on building your maps.